Hello crafty friends, welcome to my channel. Today I really just felt like playing with stencils and making some backgrounds and try to go beyond blending. I want to blend through a stencil and then do something with the blended stencil. So I've got this splashy stencil here. I thought it was good because it's August here, it's summertime here, and it's a nice kind of summery splashy pattern. And I've got some panels of mixed media paper, because this can handle pretty much anything you throw at it. And for my ink today, I'm going to use Distress Oxide in Salty Ocean. Again, it goes with a splashy, summery feel. So first things first, I'm going to ink up my stencil, and I'm going to do it on another piece of mixed media paper so the ink doesn't go to waste. I'm going to do this multiple times today, and I'm going to cut that out because you don't want to see me blending on stencils all the time, but all I want to do is load this stencil up with ink. So I've got lots of ink on my stencil, which is exactly what I wanted. So the first thing I'm going to do is spritz on my stencil to hydrate the ink that I blended on. Now you can use plain old water for this, or I've used a shimmer spray. This is a DIY shimmer spray that has water and white pearl mixer powder in it. I have a video all about how to make your own shimmer sprays if you're interested. And then all I'm going to do is press this down onto here and press it all over, and hopefully that shimmery wet ink will transfer onto my card. You could put a bit of scrap paper over it and makes it a little bit easier to press down. And I use tweezers to pick that up. And now we've got a beautiful splashy shimmery blue pattern, and it's the inverse of the pattern that we got with blending. So with blending you get colour in the holes, and with this you get colour around the holes. I will make cards with all the backgrounds that I make today, so stick around to the end of the video and I'll share those with you. Right, on to Beyond Blending number 2. I've cleaned, dried and inked up my stencil again, and I'm going to put another piece of mixed media paper on, and I'm going to hold it in place with some washi. I'm not sure how well that's going to stick to the inky bits, but hopefully there's enough there. And now I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine with the embossing sandwich. So I've got my thick plate, a cardboard shim, a cutting plate, a rubber mat, and now I've got my card, then my stencil, then another cutting plate. Your embossing sandwich will be unique to your brand of die cutting machine, so do look at the manual. So I hope you can see that we've got some dry embossing there. The pattern of the stencil has been pushed into the card. Clean my mat because we've got some ink on there. And now we've got the holes of the stencil raised, they're pushed up, and the background is now coloured from the ink on the stencil. You could give your stencil a spritz before putting it through the die cutting machine. Your washi tape probably won't stick, but why don't we give that a go and see what happens. Here's that shimmer spray again. I'm not going to put too much on. And we've got the same thing here. We've got dry embossing, but we've got a more shimmery, watery background. So that's a combination of techniques 1 and 2 really. So I've got my grip mat here because I want to hold my card and my stencil still while I do this next technique. I've inked up my stencil again, and I'm popping it inked side up. I'm going to take a clean area of my microfiber cloth and swipe over. And all this does is it cleans your stencil, but it also colours the card underneath. So it's a really kind of quick way of cleaning your stencil and getting an extra background out of it. And it's a bit more pastel than going heavy-handed with a blending brush, I find. Okay, again, I've got my grip mat, a piece of card, a stencil with the ink facing up, and now I've got some texture paste. This is Liquitex Light Modelling Paste, and I'm just going to put this through the stencil, trying to colour the paste a little bit, whoops, with the ink that's on the stencil. So you can use inks to colour modelling paste by mixing the ink and the paste on your mat, or you can do this. So now I've got some dimensional texture paste that's got a nice kind of variegated blue to it. There are lots of different types of texture paste out there. You could try this with maybe some glitter paste. This is translucent with a gold glitter in it. I think this one is on its very last legs. It's a bit thick, so I'm not sure how well this is going to work, but we'll give it a go because you never know. So that was the gold glitter. I've actually got some texture paste that is transparent and glossy. It's texture paste transparent gloss from Ranger. I don't want too much because once it's got that blue ink in it, I won't be able to put it back in the pot. But I can put that on there like that. So we can cover the whole thing. So it looks a bit messy at the moment, but hopefully, oops, we've got quite a lot of splurging on that. I was a bit heavy-handed. But hopefully once it's dry and all the paste itself has gone transparent, we'll get a nice effect. I found a really quick way of adding ink to your stencil is not to use a blending brush, but just to drag your ink pad straight across it. It works with these more robust felt ink pads, but I wouldn't recommend dragging a foam ink pad across a stencil. I think that would get into difficulty. So now we're going to do some heat embossing. I've treated this, gone over it with anti-static powder, and now I'm going to put my stencil inky side up again. And I've got some re-inker here for my embossing ink pad. I wouldn't use an embossing ink pad with this because the moment you put this to this, you're going to contaminate it. So that's well inked. I'm just blending as I normally would the embossing ink and the blue ink from the stencil through the little apertures in the stencil. So as you can see, that's gone blue now. That's going to need a really good wash before I can use it for anything else. I'll remove that. And now I'm going to sprinkle clear embossing powder all over there. You don't have to use clear embossing powder. You could change the colour of the ink by using a coloured translucent powder. If you used an opaque powder, it would cover everything up. So that has cooled and set, and we've now got heat embossed blue shapes on there. You could do an emboss resist if you wanted to colour the background. You can just blend another colour over the top. This is salvage patina, which is a bluey green, a greeny blue. Then take a dry cloth and you can buff off that salvage patina or whatever colour you use from the embossed area. I think that's a nice way of using up that ink that's sitting on your stencils. So again, we've got the paper with the stencil on top, inky side up, and I'm going to put some water on my palette here and pick up that water with my smusher and just smush it on. And I can just do that as much as I like until I've got some kind of ink in every bit of aperture that I want it in. This is going to be really kind of grungy and distressed. So you probably wouldn't think that that came from that, but that's fine. It's the starting point of something. So this has got plenty of watery ink left on it. You could add a bit more water if you wanted and do the first technique we looked at, the stamping. Okay, I've inked up my stencil and I've got a strip of clear packing tape here, and I'm going to stick that to my stencil. Peel it back up, and now I can stick that onto some paper. Whoops, and that's given me a lovely, glossy, interesting strip of paper. You could use contact paper for this, the clear sticky back plastic. Right, I've got my gel plate out here and my stencil that is inky. I'm going to put it ink side down and then press on it really well to hopefully transfer that ink onto my gel plate. I do have a whole series of gel plate videos that take you through lots of different techniques you can do with them. I will leave a link to that in this video's description, and there are lots of links to lots of different helpful technique type videos as well. Okay, so I can see some of that's transferred, and I want to add some acrylic paint on top of this. This is just a little experiment, and I've got some white acrylic and a little bit of, what's this one, mint chocolate chip, and I'll mix those to make a very pale green, hopefully. Coat my brayer, but I don't want it too wet, and then just roll that up. And now I'm going to put some mixed media paper on top of that and press that down so it's in really good contact. I could use my brayer again. And I can peel that up, and that has got a very pale background with a very soft, delicate blue on top. So we're going to do another variation of the first technique, stamping. I'm going to spritz this with my shimmer spray, and then I'm going to take this stamping foam. I haven't heated it, I'm just using it as a flat stamping foam block. Press that down onto there, and hopefully it will pick up some shimmery ink. And it looks like it has. And then I can press it down on here. And now I've got a fairly faint, to be fair, stamped image. So we'll try that again because there's still a bit of ink left on. And I'm going to mist that with just water. I'll flip it over and press it from the back. So that's much less defined, but I rather like that. Reminds me of a sky. If you haven't got stamping foam, you could try it with fan foam. While we're on the subject of stamping again, I've got a photopolymer label stamp here, and I'm going to press it down to an inky area, lift it up, and I've got some ink on there now. I should be able to get a stamped image. This works really well with solid stamps, I think. You can transfer the pattern of your stencil onto a solid shape. There you go. You can just clean your stencil with water like this. Put it on your mat, just get the colour down, and use that ink for smushing. You could pick it up with a smusher, or you can just press your paper down into it. The amount of ink and the amount of water will affect what kind of smushing you get. This is quite a nice flat wash, but as I say, play with the amount of ink, play with the amount of water. So we're going to go back to an earlier technique, which was the heat embossing one. And I've got my inky embossing ink blender here, and I'm going to blend this onto some vellum, trying not to shift it around. Should have put this on my grip mats, but I'm getting overexcited now and I forget to do things when that happens. So now we have got, hopefully, some embossing ink on there. And I'm going to pour over some white pearl in superfine. This is translucent, so it will just give the inky bits a white pearly sheen. You should still see the blue. So I'll heat that in a tick. But now what I want to do is the dry embossing, but with this bluey embossing inky stencil. Again on vellum. I've just picked vellum for a change. There's no reason why you can't do this on card. And now we've got a very faint blue transfer there. I'm hoping that the embossing ink has transferred well. And I'm going to heat both of those with my heat tool. Right, I'm really pleased with those. This one, we've got a very, very subtle blueness to that white pearl. And this one is a really pretty light blue. So have a go at combining various techniques. You never know what you might discover. Right, there you go. Lots of ways of using that ink that's left on your stencils after you've blended. I'm going to toddle off now and make some cards with these, and then I'll come back in a tick and show you how they turned out. Right, I'm back and I've got 13 cards to share with you. This was the one I did with the spritz and stamp. I wrapped some silver thread around the panel, about a third of the way down the card, added a stitched white circle and a silver thanks, and then a little ring of silver Nouveau drops. This is the dry embossing background, and I added a diagonal of rose gold splats going from this corner to this corner for a bit of extra energy and to add something shimmery and shiny to the background. I then popped on some rainbow washi tape, a white circle and some rose gold embellishments. We've got a hello die cut and some little circles. For this background I did the spritzing, then the dry embossing, and I popped the panel on as if it's swinging down from that corner, trimmed it down, added a white circle and a white label, a rose gold heart and some embellishments, and a pre-cut sentiment. For this background I used the microfiber cloth to clean the stencil onto a piece of card, so it's the more subtle pastel blending. I stamped a blob in embossing ink and then heat embossed it in gold, and I also heat embossed the edge of this in gold. I added a vellum circle, a stitched white circle, a bit of foliage that's kind of reminiscent of seaweed because of the splashy nature. I thought seaweed might work well. And then a happy birthday that I printed and cut at home. The background for this card was created by putting some texture paste through a stencil and colouring the texture paste that way. Once that had all set, I rolled over it with some embossing ink on my brayer and then sprinkled on some gold embossing powder. I covered up probably a bit more of the blue texture paste than I would have liked. Next time I won't be so heavy-handed with the embossing ink, but I really like the way this has turned out, and I added a bit of linen textured foliage here that I coloured with Salty Ocean Distress Oxide and popped a sentiment on the top. This is the other texture paste background. I decided to cut it so it was more square because the bits down this end got really splurgy. They'd seeped under the stencil and made a bit of a mess. So I cut it down, added 2 stitch white circles, some gold foliage and a birthday greetings. This is the one where I put the embossing inked sponge over my inky stencil and then clear embossed over the blue and then emboss resisted in salvage patina. I added a nice wide strip of gold ribbon, a white circle, some seaweedy type foliage and a birthday greetings. To create this background I used my smusher and water and just smushed on top of the stencil. I added some more of those rose gold splats, some rose gold glitter washi tape, a white circle and a lots of love in rose gold cardstock. I might add some Nouveau drops to this, not sure. I'll have to leave it and have a think. So for this little strip here I used the clear packing tape to lift colour off a stencil. I cut it down with a stitched rectangle die and popped it in the top right hand corner. Again added a circle, a label, a rose gold scribbly heart and a birthday sentiment. So this was the gel print background. I added rose gold splatters and it really gave me a swimming pool type vibe. And I added some gridded washi tape because that reminded me of sort of swimming pool tiles, a white circle, a love you in rose gold and 3 rose gold dots. These are the 2 I made with vellum. They both got circles and labels and rose gold hearts and birthday sentiments and some gold dots. And this is a bit of a bonus card. I made this one, it was the very first thing I did where I took the clean stencil and blended ink to ink up my stencil. I then took the background and just went over it with the residual ink on my blending brush to create a lighter blue background. Cut it down with a stitched rectangle die and placed it in this top half of the card. Added a circle, a label, a rose gold heart, a happy birthday and some little rose gold dots there. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video and it's given you some ideas of things you can do so as not to waste the ink that's left on your stencils after you've done some blending. If you've got any other ideas about what to do with that ink, then do leave them in a comment below so that we can all gather as many ideas as possible. And if you've enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you could let me know in the comments, leave a thumbs up, subscribe and ring the notification bell, and I'll see you back here very soon for another video. And I'm going to sign off now before the aeroplane goes overhead. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.